It started with a door that creaked open every morning at 6:15 a.m. in a small, half-forgotten town where fog kissed the pavement and the coffee shop lights flickered awake before the sun. Most people didn't notice that door. They walked past it on their way to school, to work, to somewhere faster. But every single morning, without fail, that door opened, and an old man in a gray hoodie stepped out, broom in hand. His name was Mr. Ellis, retired teacher, lives alone, keeps the sidewalks clean even though no one asked him to. Across the street lived Caleb Chew, 17, tired of everything, tired of school, tired of motivation, tired of hearing people say, change starts with you. He'd wake up late, grab a half-burnt Pop-Tart, and scroll through TikTok until the bus honked twice. He thought life changed through big moments, the kind that looked good on camera. But one foggy morning, he noticed the old man sweeping. Same rhythm, same time, every single day. At first it meant nothing, but the truth behind that small act, the reason that door kept opening, would change Caleb's life in a way he never saw coming. Let me show you exactly how this happened. Caleb lived in a neighborhood that looked like it was built in a hurry. Peeling paint, quiet yards, and people who mostly stayed to themselves. His world was noise, music, screens, notifications, endless chatter that filled the space where thoughts should live. His grades were slipping. His mom worked double shifts. His dad had left years ago. And every day felt like a rerun of a show he didn't want to watch. But across the street, always before sunrise, Mr. Ellis swept the sidewalk in front of the old library. He moved slowly, carefully, like every stroke of the broom mattered. Sometimes he'd pause and look at the sky. Not long, just enough to notice it changing. Caleb once asked his mom, "Why does that old guy clean the street every day? Doesn't the city do that?" She shrugged. Maybe he just likes things neat. But there was something different about it, something oddly peaceful. One morning, when Caleb missed the bus, he stood on his porch and watched. Mr. Ellis's movements were steady. No rush, no music, just quiet rhythm. The sound of bristles on concrete and the whisper of morning wind. It made Caleb uncomfortable, in a strange way, like looking at a mirror of patience he didn't understand. For the first time he noticed, Mr. Ellis's steps didn't wobble, even though he was old. His eyes didn't wander. He wasn't bored. He was present. That day, Caleb walked to school. Halfway there, he saw a candy wrapper on the sidewalk. He stared at it for a second, then kicked it aside. Not my problem, he thought. But the thought stuck, because he remembered that man, sweeping every single day for no reason at all. Now here's where things get really interesting. The next week, Caleb got detention, again, skipping homework, late for class. He didn't care. He'd sit by the window, watch the clock, count the minutes. Until one afternoon, the detention supervisor was, of course, Mr. Ellis. Apparently, the old man volunteered at the school on Fridays. He looked up from his papers and said quietly, "Caleb, you're here again." Caleb rolled his eyes. "Yeah, lucky me." Mr. Ellis smiled. "You know, there's a funny thing about brooms and clocks. Both work best when you keep them moving." Caleb didn't get it. "Whatever." The old man handed him a rag and pointed to the dusty windows. "Start there." Caleb frowned. "You're serious?" "Always," Mr. Ellis said. So Caleb started wiping, half-heartedly. But as the sun sank behind the field, he caught the light reflecting on the glass, the streaks disappearing, the view getting clearer. For the first time in weeks, something he did looked better when he was done. "Good," said Mr. Ellis. "Not perfect, but better." That's how most things change. That night, Caleb went home tired, but quieter inside. He didn't tell anyone. But the next morning, when he saw a soda can rolling down the street, he picked it up and dropped it in the bin. No one clapped, no one noticed. But he did. And something deep inside him, something that had been asleep, blinked awake. He started to wonder, why did Mr. Ellis keep sweeping? Was he lonely? Bored? Or was he chasing something Caleb couldn't see? The next weekend, Caleb crossed the street. "Hey, Mr. Ellis," he said awkwardly. "You need help or something?" The old man smiled. "I always do." He handed Caleb another broom. For an hour they swept side by side in silence. The rhythm became hypnotic. Brush, pause. Step. Brush again. "Why do you do this?" Caleb finally asked. Mr. Ellis didn't stop. "Because 20 years ago, I promised myself I'd never let a day pass without making something a little better than I found it." Caleb blinked. "That's it? You sweep to make things better?" "Exactly. A little better is still better," he smiled. "You know, Caleb, small habits are like quiet prayers. No one hears them, but they change the world anyway." Caleb laughed softly. "That's kinda deep for a broom." Mr. Ellis chuckled. "That's what they said about pencils too, until one wrote the Declaration of Independence." As the sun rose higher, Caleb noticed something. People walking by began to smile. A woman nodded. A man dropped $1 in the library donation box. And for the first time, Caleb realized, maybe the point wasn't the broom. Maybe it was the energy that small acts send out. One day led to another. Caleb started showing up every Saturday morning, not because he had to, but because it felt right. Then came the day everything changed. It was raining, hard. The streets were slick, gray, and empty. Still, that door opened. Mr. Ellis stepped out, broom in hand. Caleb ran across the street, jacket over his head. "You're out here in the rain?" Mr. Ellis nodded. "Rain doesn't cancel purpose, son." They swept together beneath the drizzle. Water filled the gutters. The air smelled like metal and earth. That day, Caleb didn't just learn about habit. He felt it. The quiet strength of showing up. The way consistency becomes identity. He didn't know it yet, but that rainy morning would echo through his life for years. 2 months later, Caleb got his report card. Still not great, but better. His teacher had written one line. "You've been more focused lately. Keep it up." He smiled, not because of the grade, but because it proved something. Small habits had changed him. And then one morning, the door didn't open. No broom, no sound. Mr. Ellis wasn't there. Caleb waited a week, then 2. He knocked on the old man's door. No answer. The next day, a note appeared taped to the library door. Mr. Ellis passed away peacefully in his sleep. Thank you for keeping his sidewalks clean. Caleb stood in the rain again, this time without a broom. He looked down the street, empty, except for a few leaves blowing across the pavement. Something inside him broke, but not in the way pain breaks you. It broke open, like a seed splitting, so the plant can grow. The next morning, at 6:15 a.m., a different door opened. Caleb stepped out, hoodie on, broom in hand. He swept, not because he was told to, but because that's what Mr. Ellis would have done. And right then, a woman walking her dog smiled and said, "Your grandpa would be proud." Caleb smiled back. He wasn't my grandpa. She tilted her head. He was everyone's. The rain had stopped, but the world still shimmered. So what does all this mean for us today? Caleb's story spread, Not online, not viral, just word of mouth. Neighbors began watering flowers outside. Kids stopped tossing wrappers. The town started looking alive, all from one man's broom. One small habit that outlived him. That's the thing about small habits. They don't die, they duplicate. They pass through people quietly, like invisible threads stitching the world together. Caleb grew up. He graduated. He got a job at the same school where he once got detention. Every morning, he'd arrive early. He'd wipe the windows, open the blinds, and whisper, "Better than yesterday." And every student who walked in noticed something they couldn't explain. It just felt good in there. Because consistency leaves an invisible fragrance, the smell of order, peace, and quiet strength. That's what small habits do. They don't shout, they hum. Years later, when a new kid named Mason started skipping classes, Caleb didn't lecture him. He just handed him a broom. "Start here," he said. And the cycle began again. Months later, during a heavy winter storm, Caleb stood at the window, watching the snow fall across the old library steps. He saw a boy, maybe 12, brushing the snow away with a broken broom. He smiled, because he knew exactly what that meant. He walked outside, handed the kid a pair of gloves, and said, "Keep the sidewalks clean, all right?" The boy nodded, shivering, but smiling. That night, Caleb sat at his desk, pulled out a small notebook, the same kind Mr. Ellis once carried, and wrote, "Change begins with a broom, not applause." He looked at his reflection and realized he had become the man he once watched from the porch. Because the power of small habits isn't about routines. It's not about productivity. It's about identity, about the invisible thread between who we are and who we're becoming. The smallest choices, a glass of water, a kind word, one extra step. They're not small. They're proof. Proof that greatness isn't born. It's built. Quietly. Morning after morning. So next time you think your actions don't matter, remember this. Somewhere out there, someone might be watching you. And that small, ordinary thing you do might just become the story that saves them. Because the power of small habits isn't in what they do for us today. It's in what they leave behind tomorrow.